For
And
me, it was like a litmus test because I had never heard of Dabba. I had no physical interaction with it, so always I have like, A, is this a scam? And then I saw book a call, and I was like, okay, that's really weird. That does not fit into this at all if it's being a scam or fishy. And then I talked with you, and I was like, no way, this is crazy. And coming from a corporate background, you can't talk to higher ups. You can't have a meeting with the CFO, CEO, and so on. So to me, it's like, that was anomalous. That was something that was noteworthy, and that sort of caught my attention.
Hello and welcome to the Chai and Wi-Fi podcast, where we talk to different people from DePIN to Web3 and anywhere in between. Today we are joined by Buckgup. He is a member of the Dabba community. He's one of the OGs. He has been here for quite a while. You would have seen him in the chat, engaging with different members of the community. Buckgup, how's it going? Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into it.
Yeah, so I come from a long history of crypto and not necessarily Web3 because that wasn't a term back then. I started in 2012. A tech ed teacher when I was in middle school showed me Bitcoin, and I was like, what is this? So I went home, I learned how to make a wallet, how to mine it. Didn't really have a computer to mine it, so I was like, this is cool, but maybe one day I can get to the point where I can actually afford it, because I was making like a couple cents a day. I kept mining altcoins through college. I'd get my dorm up to like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Graduated a year early with a computer science degree, started working at HPE. I was a hardware technician doing HPC work, so what used to be Cray research, I was working there making big supercomputers. I kept mining, and I heard of Helium's 5G miner, their IoT side. Oh, actually, I heard of their IoT side, and then eventually I heard of their 5G side. And I'd missed the initial IoT push, so I was like, I'm not going to miss the 5G push. So I got a miner on that. So then, as I was more involved with Helium and understood what it was, I was sort of looking like, what's next? And I found Dabba, and I've just been like patiently engaging, waiting, seeing how you guys evolve, because like the original token economics was like 250 billion, sort of like Helium, and then everyone's like, that's not a good idea. And then you guys were like a native token, and then Helium was like, yeah, native token, and then they went back to one. So it's been interesting seeing the industry sort of say like, hey, this is a good idea, and everyone's like, I don't see why not. And then we go through it, and they're like, "That wasn't a good idea."
Yeah, I mean, especially through the cycles of like the last 2 years, a lot of DePINs just like trying to figure themselves out. Right? It's
exactly
everyone's trying to learn. Right? I think one thing that even I've noticed is if a project comes to you and says we have it figured out, your antenna should like go up immediately.
Definitely. And so yeah, I've just been watching Dabba, and personally I've been more involved doing local DePIN, so I'm getting involved with GeoNet, Wingbits, and I've got a bunch of Helium hotspots. To me, that's just sort of like, yeah, it's cool, because I'm not trying to like create a massive fleet. I'm just trying to support my life and sort of get involved with the technology more so than the rewards of it and whatnot. But then my current plan is I'm converting my home HVAC from natural gas to Bitcoin. So that's my current focus, because I really want to hone in on Bitcoin heating. That's always been a dream of mine. So that should be this winter's goal.
I mean, trying to bring in that utility, right? I can even see that kind of path that you've taken as well. And let's dive into that a little bit also. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you talked about that's super interesting.
Right.
But one thing was, I remember our early conversations, just to give the audience some context. When we first started building community, one of the things that we did, I'm sure you remember, is my calendar was open for everyone to like jump on a call. And you were one of the first people we talked to, with the idea of, we want to understand the community better. What is really needed out there? How can we really expand out? And you were one of those first people.
Well, and for me, it was like a litmus test, because I had never heard of Dabba, and it's like you guys, I had no physical interaction with it, so always I have like, is this a scam? So I will go through like what pieces about it are like fishy, a little off, and then I saw book a call, and I was like, okay, that's really weird. That does not fit into this at all if it's being a scam or fishy. And then I talked with you, and I was like, no way, this is crazy. This is like, and coming from a corporate background, you can't talk to higher ups. You can't have a meeting with the CFO, CEO, and so on. So to me, it's like, that was anomalous. That was something that was noteworthy, and that sort of caught my attention.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and even for us, it was so important, just to really get into the trenches, talk to OGs like yourself who have really been, in the industry, right? Not just with
Hmm.
DePINs, but, starting from Bitcoin and even, just talking to you. Understand you have this philosophy of, yes, mining is great, but how can we add utility to it, right? You're talking about converting your own HVAC system, right? How can I get some
Right.
heat out of it, right? You're thinking in that track, which is super interesting.
Hmm.
And yeah, so like what were some of the indicators, especially in the early days, you started talking to us and what really interested you about Dabba and gave you that confidence to really participate in this project?
The market you're in, because I had watched a Vice documentary way back in like 2012, and it's when I think it was either Airtel or Geo made this monopoly in India,
Mm.
and I think it was either subsidized or free. But then once they
Geo.
got yeah, and then they got the monopoly status, they started raising the prices slowly.
Yeah.
Um, so I knew there was some telecom nuances in India and the just like the population density and so on. So I knew like the Indian market was nuanced. I didn't look at it as closely as I have now, but I knew there was something there. And through university work, I've worked with Indians, and it's been great. Just sort of seeing their perspective and where their mind is culturally.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the great thing about Web3, right? I mean,
Right.
um, working with people globally helps you with your perspective, right? It
Definitely.
really does change your perspective from both sides. So coming back to you
Hmm.
and kind of your journey through things. So I know you're not just an OG on the Dabba network with the community, but as you said before, in Web3 with crypto, starting way back, with Bitcoin, considering you've gone through so many projects and you're also deploying so many projects,
Hmm.
what are you looking for? Like, what in your eyes? What are the good things you look for? What are the bad things you try to, look out for? Like, how do you approach this industry?
So typically I'll look at sort of this like GUI fundamental layer. So if somebody says they're doing something, you have to make sure A, that what they're doing is of value. So first you need to see like their mission statement or just like their societal noise. Like what are they doing? So if they're doing something that you're like, wow, that's awesome. Either it doesn't exist, it's been privatized, centralized, or it's a horrible state. And that, after that test is done, you sort of look to their fundamentals. So I always go to white papers or a light
Hmm.
paper if they have it. Because to me, it's like if you can't articulate what you're doing, then what are you doing? So if there's a white paper or like a GitHub, Gitbook, and it's well defined, being able to articulate it to me is another skill outside of just having the idea of it. So if you're able to have this idea, articulate it, and document it, that's like another step, another like chain piece. That's like, okay, that's good. And then looking at their sort of justification and rationality. So somebody's like, we're launching on peak, and all of their rationality and justification isn't really solid. It's sort of in the air or like non tangibles. To me, that's a little interesting. It's sort of, it's not
Hmm.
necessarily, it might be suspicious, but when things follow logic or like make sense, like, hey, we have this project and it depends on transaction speed. So we went with the most decentralized, fastest network, and that's Solana. So to me, it's like, okay, that makes sense. The developers had a need, they're using it, it's all good. Same with like transparency on chain. So if you have like a Dune page or their own Explorer, I'm always looking for numbers because people will say things, but the numbers are like the truth to what they're saying. And you can sort of see more so in the patterns of the numbers, maybe speculatively what's happening, opposed to
Hmm.
just what their roadmap is and whatnot. And then also the founders, because to me a company and a business is the people, because without the people it wouldn't be anything. So yeah, it's sort of like white paper, vibe checks, founders, historical presence. I don't know, it's just a combination of them all. I will say also, I think the name of it is grossly under, like people don't understand how much the name matters. Like the name doesn't matter, but it also does. Because for
Yeah.
me, Dabba is such a good, such a good name. Because if you think of like Google, Dabba, they're like two syllables, and like I don't know. To me, the name is very important.
It's all about that vibe check, right? It's
Yeah,
it's it's just multiple tick marks. Like,
exactly.
am I vibing with the name? Am I vibing with the community? Am I vibing with what they're trying to achieve? And
Hmm.
the future perspective, right? All these things are super super important.
Exactly.
So those are the good things, and those are the good things you want to look out for any project.
Hmm.
Now, I'm sure since you're an OG, you've also been burnt a couple of times, with some projects and the like. So, what are red flags? What are the things that you like? What would you tell the community to think about? Because a lot of our community members, especially with our managed deployment model, it makes it so easy for people to get involved. A lot of our community members are relatively new to Web3, so help them out a bit to understand, okay, if they're looking at different projects, what are the things they should be careful about?
Most people, what they can look for is, so like the way the community members behave is a good piece. So if you go in their Discord, well, having a Discord and Telegram is a step they should look out for. If they don't have that, that's weird. But a Discord that's like active and people are asking like more technical questions, they're not sort of
Real
remedial.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not in the air. And seeing maybe like a core group of people responding, because like there's people here, they're actually doing things. And having transparent founders, it's sort of it's debatable, but having doxed founders in my eyes is actually a good thing, especially if you're dealing with like DPIN, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, we can't all just hide in our closet. There's a point where
Yeah.
you're like going into the real world, deploying hardware, people are seeing you talking. So to me, I'm looking for those things. So it's like dox founders, the website, their white paper. Like, what is the landing page? Is the landing page trying to sell me something or educate me on something? And I guess just like the town halls really help, because you get the essence of the person, if that makes sense. Sort
Yeah.
of just like more so to their character, so you can see their ideology of how they do decision making in the future, and then that can help like bring confidence. Because if like, I mean, you guys are great, so it's like the vibe of you is great. So then you just get this like, and people who meet you in person at like the Solana Summit and Accelerate, they're just like great, humble creators. So things like that really, to me, are what matters. Because you can say everything else, put it in a different format, put it online, but at the end of the day, it's about the people.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And great points over there. I think to summarize a lot of these things, the most foremost important thing is do your own research. Right?
Right.
Don't just rely on opinion and what people say, but do your own research. And I like how you listed out a bunch of these things that help with that, right?
Right.
Do they have good documentation, right? Do they have a good pedigree and like experience in their field or something relative that okay, these are the guys who are able to do it, because even from coming from building businesses myself, and you pointed this out so clearly, right? People are very important. Products change, businesses pivot, these things happen, but who are the people? Are these the kind of people that I want to be working with? That's really important. So that vibe check is really important. Make sure
Right.
that is there a way for you to actually reach out to that, not just to the community, but who are the guys running the show, and who are they? That's really, really important, especially in DePINs, like especially for us, where the focus is always on providing a service that matters, right? That there are end consumers, and this gets lost in a lot of Web3, especially. I've seen this, where people forget that you're actually providing a service. That a DePIN is providing a service, and that is the core of the project. If
Right.
people are not using your service, if people don't want your service, everything crumbles and just everything becomes speculative. You turn into a meme coin.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with the meme coin, but just like you said, if you're a duck, say you're a duck. If you're a rat, say you're a
Yeah.
rat.
Right.
You want to stick to what you want. I think that's really important. So
Well,
thanks for
and
pointing it out.
yeah, and I feel like, because I grew up I was in a rural area on a farm, so we had like dial-up internet for like 10 years longer than most people in town. My parents still live there, and they get a megabit per second, and their upload is 650 kilobits per second.
Oof.
And right, still. So to me, it's like having like Dabba, where you go from like no broadband to broadband. It's like I would have loved to have that as a kid. I would have loved to have some crazy company in Germany, doing this, and Dabba shows up. That'd be amazing. Instead, yeah, they're paying $120 a month for a megabit per second. And then I
That's
look at
crazy.
Dabba, and I'm like, they're paying $90 a year for a gigabit, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in India, developing country, and those speeds make me cringe.
Right?
So
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, the world has a long way to go. I mean, that just goes to show that this is not an Indian problem; it's a universal problem, right? When you get into the
Exactly.
stories across Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, right? It's problems across the board. Anyway, so my next question. You have been with the community pretty much from day one.
Hmm.
And now you are an ambassador, right? And
Hmm.
which we're all super excited about. Having guys like you as part of ambassadors is really important to us.
Hmm.
So that being said, like, what is your explanation to someone who just comes to you and asks you, "What is Dabba?" Like, how do you describe Dabba to a friend?
Yeah, so it depends on their current understanding of Web3, because if they're a close friend, they've probably heard me talk about Helium and things like that a lot. So usually if they know about Helium, I'll say like, oh, hey, it's like Helium, it's a managed deployment model, but it's like in India and they do everything for you. And then I sort of try and tie it in to be it's like an ISP. So it's like if you have TDS, Spectrum, or Charter, whatever, that is who they are, but in India, and that really closes the gap because then they're like, oh, like that's who they are, that's what their company's doing.
That's a great explanation, right? Just taking that ISP point of view, because a lot of people don't understand, because they take the comparison to other DePIN projects and other DY projects, right? And what is that comparison? Okay, you want me to buy this Wi-Fi router, put it in my house, and I get these I get magic money after some time, right? That's pretty much how everyone looks at it.
Right.
But then when we try to explain to people, hey, you're not just buying a hotspot from us, right? Every hotspot represents, the labor that goes into it, the actual wiring of backhaul and the fiber and the customer support and all of these things that take what it takes to actually build infrastructure. That's what you are purchasing into, right? That's what you are participating in, right? You're not just
Right.
buying a hotspot. And the
Yeah,
best
yeah.
part about it is you don't have to do any of this work, right?
Right.
It gets taken care of for you by the Dabba network. So I think that's a great way to explain it. Taking that kind of ISP approach, saying that, hey, it's a decentralized ISP, right? Think of it
Hmm.
as AT&T or whatever broadband service you want over there, and it's the same thing over here, but much cheaper to the end consumer because that entire stack is now subsidized through
Right.
the Web3 model, right? That makes a whole ton of sense. I also see that, you've been creating a lot of posts talking about, the future of DePIN and where things can go in your, your imagination and just how you've seen DePIN growing and even Dabba growing. What does the future look like for Dabba and DePIN to you?
Yeah, so I definitely think we're headed towards. So there's like a couple pieces. So there's like the. I'll just like go through them and not necessarily segment them because I don't know if I can personally clearly see them. But the way we're headed, so hopefully we're heading towards like an ideal global economy. So in my eyes, Bitcoin will be the global reserve currency. And when an economy is actually functioning properly and isn't centralized, things only get cheaper over time. So people currently have this sort of like rat race mentality of getting a better job, going to college, make sure you get a better job, this and that. And it's all centered around this idea of having to make more because you have inflation. So in my eyes, the economy of everything will get better and better and better. Things will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and more of these opportunities in like DePIN infrastructure and so on are going to allow people to live most of their life. They're not going to be working most of the time. They're actually going to be out and about in the world doing things as their machines at home generate their value that they use to spend for their necessities. So I think it's sort of a flywheel because you'll have better infrastructure because of DePIN, and then more people will be out and about using the infrastructure, which makes the infrastructure more valuable, but it also makes it nicer and creates this flywheel of people saying like, everyone's outside enjoying their life. What am I doing working for LinkedIn? I want to do that, and I only have to buy a couple hotspots, and I can. So like people just start transitioning, and I also think with like the term like iPad kid, like these new generation of kids are gonna look at like current banking, and it's just too much. There's too many
Yeah,
weird nuances, too many rules for something that's like bad. Why
yeah.
would they ever use it? So to me, they're just funneling straight into the Web3 and crypto. So they're going to be able to accept it nicely and just work as like a sovereign contractor. And that's sort of like the human physical side, because I can also see the other side of this weird, not weird, but like foreign composable space. So with Web3, like an NFT is the hotspot. It's no longer tied to physicality of it because it's
Yeah.
completely composable. So I can see like all these new sort of like I don't know if they'd be like products or use cases, but you can take like an NFT that generates revenue in the real world and it's a piece of infrastructure, and then you can compose that and put it in a different either like financial project or like a game or a different scenario. You can sort of reskin everything or like put on your HoloLens and see everything differently.
Yeah.
So to me, it's really hard to visualize what it would be exactly, but I think it'll just be a lot more like borderless, the way we think of things, or the contextual, or like yeah, just the context of it or the relevance. So I could see, because to me, like you could use a Dabba hotspot. So say you have like a savings bond or something, a Dabba hotspot could replace that, but people involved in that would have no idea it's actually a hotspot providing infrastructure. All they see is this composable NFT that generates this amount or something of that nature. And then
Yeah.
to go one step further, since it's existing physically, now AI can manage that and do things
Yeah.
with that. So we have this weird bridge of like physicality, and then we're sort of we're pushing our value more and more into the metaverse. And because of that, we lose the pertinence of physicality, and that opens the door to a ton of things.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love that point of view. I think that is that's an exciting future to look forward to. You know, just seeing that different levels of like economic chains just being abstracted away towards goods and services that can gain you the same, if not better returns than what we see traditionally, and actually contributing towards something meaningful like infrastructure, right? You know, that's a great way of looking at it, right? You know, people are always looking at, you know, opportunities for things like, you know, passive income and whatnot, right? You know, what if there's a future where your passive income earning is helping the world to make the world a better place? You know, it's always
Exactly.
great to be altruistic, you know, everyone wants to do it, but everyone needs to earn a living as well and want a better future for themselves also, right? You
Well,
know, finding that balance,
yeah.
and that's a great perspective on that.
That's why with India I always like it, because it's a fun thought experiment. Because if you take like, so say Dabba has 500 million hotspots, that's not everyone in India still. So 500 million, it's a lot, but it's also like not that much, because also that's India. There's an entire world around them. And then you look at the population of the U.S. That's like 358 million. So everyone in the U.S. could almost have 2 Dabba hotspots. So to me, it's like, whoa, wait a second. If somebody like some crazy rich Bill Gates person could buy the entire infrastructure of Dabba in India and create a universal basic income for an entire country, and it's based off their infrastructure. So then it's like, wait
Yeah.
a second, these people are winning, these people are winning, everyone's just holistically rising together.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it, right? And that's what we're trying to prove, right? There are ways to build sustainable models where it's win-win-win for everyone across the board, all the stakeholders involved. It's not purely altruistic. Yes, we want to make the world a better place. We want better connectivity, but we also need to make sure it's a sustainable business model, and you, the person who are involved, get what you've come for as well, right? That's important. Making sure we meld those two things together is like the perfect combination. Nice. So, yeah, so I think great talking to you. This has been an amazing conversation. I always
Yeah.
have fun talking to you. So, what are your closing thoughts? What would you like to tell the community, everyone who's watching this from the community? What would you like to tell them?
Um, that's that's hard.
It's a
Um,
loaded question.
yeah. I guess chase passions, not profits. Um, Money is the potential to do something. It's not the something. Uh, and yeah, trust your instinct and gut. Like, have confidence in your own, do your own research. Because typically you see people do their own research, but have confidence in your own findings. You know, there might be 1,000 people you see saying something else, but they're all bots and you have no idea, and your gut was
Yeah.
right. So just follow your gut, have confidence, be optimistic, and dabba dabba do.
I love how that saying has just picked up in the community.
Right?
But thank you so much, Buckup. It has been a pleasure. Always a fun having a conversation with you. I will catch you on the Discord and in the community very soon. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to all our content on YouTube, Telegram, Discord, Twitter. We're everywhere right now. So, you know, catch us everywhere. If you have any questions, like we talked about before, you can still book a call with the team. You can leave tickets on Discord. We are out there and talking to everybody. So thank you guys for joining in. Thank you again, Buckup, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
See ya.
Bye.